just after 11 o'clock here on the East Coast, and we are coming on the air with an update on those devastating tornadoes that hit the Southeast and the Midwest in the middle of the night. The sun has now been up for a few hours in that region, and search and rescue crews there, along with first responders, are picking through the rubble. They are looking for survivors and recovering the dead. This morning, Kentucky's Governor Andy Beshear said that he expects 50 to 100 people may have been killed in his state, many of them at a candle factory in the small town of Mayfield. He is now taking part in a news conference. Let's listen in.
And sadly, far too many homes that people were likely in, entirely devastated. This will be, I believe, the deadliest tornado system to ever run through Kentucky. You know, earlier this morning at about 5 a.m., we were pretty sure that we would lose over 50 Kentuckians. I'm now certain that that number is north of 70. It may, in fact, end up exceeding 100 before the day is done. The damage is even worse now that we have first light. A couple places have been hit incredibly hard. Certainly Mayfield here in Grace County, but everywhere along the line of this tornado that touched down and stayed down for 227 miles, over 200 in Kentucky, has been severely and significantly impacted.
Welcome back to the 1 Million Mile Road Trip. I'm Tommy, and we are right now mooch-stocking at my in-laws' house for the Christmas holidays. And I wanted to talk on something on this video today that has hit America hard the last couple of days. They had the tornadoes in Kentucky, and as you saw in that opening video through NBC News, that it was devastating and it is a massive loss of life. I grew up in the South where tornadoes were just almost a weekly thing in the spring. It was when you have the warm weather coming from the south and the Gulf of Mexico, and the cool air coming out of the north. They butt heads in April and May, and really tornadoes are almost a weekly, if not every other daily thing sometimes. The spring is just terrible in the South for tornadoes. But tornadoes like this catch everybody off guard. The tornadoes in Kentucky, here it is in December, you would not think that you have to worry about being tornado aware in the beginning of the winter. But when you have warm air again in the Gulf of Mexico coming up, where you have warm days, really warm days, and you got cold air moving in, that's what happens. Now, if you're RVing, like full-time RVing like we are, you need to prepare for these things ahead of time. You need to be weather aware, and whether you have there's tons of weather alert apps on your phone. There are weather radios you can get. Radio Shack used to have a radio, the weather radio, but now Walmart sells them and everything, where you will get an alert from the National Weather Service no matter where you are in the United States. However, if you're like us and you're traveling out west or you're traveling in the South and you don't know exactly what county you're in, that's why I think this applies pretty well for everything, but get you some type of piece of paper somewhere that you can access it when you're in a panic. If you have something bad happen, that tells the address you're at, the county you're in, and the state you're in. So in case you have an emergency inside the RV, you have whatever happens where your partner or yourself gets injured, and you need to call an ambulance. You need to make sure they know where exactly you are, the site number you're at, the city you're in, the address you are, so that you're not, because your cell phone, especially if you're calling on your cell phone, and you will be primarily if you're not staying in a house, then they can, sure they can tell about where your cell phone is. It takes a while, and if you need an ambulance or something, an emergency, you need to get them right there right away. But if it's just like this. I lived and grew up in the South. We were very familiar with tornadoes and how they affected us at that time. We also, my wife and I also lived on the Gulf Coast, and where we had hurricanes. Hurricanes, you have a week to maybe prepare. You have time to board your windows up. You have time to evacuate your family. I was in law enforcement, so I didn't have the option of evacuating. I had to stay. But it was, you had time. Tornadoes, on the other hand, they'll put out a tornado watch. But the problem is with this is tornado watches are out all the time. People get used to them. They don't really take them seriously in a lot of times, a lot of situations. So when the warning comes up, you have very little time to prepare. So I'll just give you some suggestions what I would do if we're in an area where there is a watch. A watch area can be huge. For instance, this watch area where this tornado hit the other night was all the way from top of Illinois all the way down to southern Louisiana. So you can see it covered a massive amount of area. The outside of your RV, I would pick up anything loose items that can be thrown around in the wind. It doesn't have to be a tornado. It could be just a very, very strong straight line winds. Put your chairs up. Put your grill up if you have a portable grill. Put any shoes from your kids or you have. You can put your rugs up. Put anything up that's going to be a missile, be thrown from one area of the RV park to the other, through windows or whatever. Pick up any loose branches that are laying around your campsite. Even firewood needs to be stored somewhere, maybe underneath the RV to keep the wind from blowing it, especially if you have like a tornado winds. Now, another thing though, be weather aware. Pay attention to where county you're in, so that if they do come out with a tornado warning and they say so-and-so county, you can know that's where you're at. I apologize, my dog's over there scratching her collar right now. Maggie, you right, buddy? So you can be aware of where you're at and what type of shelter you need to take. Now, most RV parks in what I call the tornado belt will have storm cellars. The problem I see with a lot of these storm cellars, though, that the public storm cellars in the area, there'll be a storm cellar just about every little small town I know of. But the one problem I see that deters a lot of people from going there is a lot of them do not allow pets. So, you know, do you want to leave your animals that are just like your kids in your RV? I would say you probably, in all seriously, you need to go take shelter to save your life in that event. But I know a lot of people that will not leave their animals, period. And, you know, we can be, I know the other night in this storm, we had the option of going to our father-in-law's house when we watched the weather, and we didn't, it kind of skirted to the north of us. But it was a decision. Do we leave the dogs in the RV and our cat in the RV, because we're pets really not allowed over there. So, you know, that's decisions I think that hamper especially older people that, I mean, that's pets all they got. And so they're really reluctant to go to shelters for that. But you need to be aware of that. If you get trapped in your RV and you don't have an option, you don't have you can't escape from it, you can't escape to take shelter, then what I've read online, and I'm not an expert, but what I've read online and what we had planned to do would be to go to the most secure place inside the RV that, one, has an escape window that you can get out of if it should flip. The RV should flip over on its side or one side or the other, or it should be tossed about, that you would have the safest place to go. And it might just be, you know, the more center, like underneath your kitchen table if you had to. You got a lot of windows in here, but at least you'd be a way to get out. You might wrap yourself in heavy blankets, We thought about just, maybe getting down beside the bed, but the problem with that is if the RV, we're in a Class A, if it was to fall over on the side with the window and then the refrigerator blocked our path to get to the front, it might be very difficult to get out, because if it flips this way, the refrigerator and everything's going to come down and pretty much block our path.
Maggie,
I'm
hush.
sorry. Maggie.
Hush.
She doesn't understand. Hey, we're filming. Be quiet. So you need to be aware of that. I personally would use that as absolute last resort, is staying in your RV. If you're in the city, traveling through a city and there's a tornado, if it was me, I would try to find a place to park on the street near a parking garage if possible. Park your vehicle on the street, or I mean not directly in the street, but on the sides of the street, and get out and go inside the parking garage and seek shelter, say in a stairwell or something like that, with you and your pets. So that would be probably the safest place to be. That's where most law enforcement, when they get trapped in the city in severe weather, we did it for hurricanes. If we were out working in that, we would go inside parking garages and secure theirs. It was just very safe because the wind actually blew straight through them. They didn't have anything to push off, and I've never seen a parking garage destroyed by a tornado. But, if nothing else and you get trapped in your vehicle and you're not near a parking garage, try to get a large, sturdy building, concrete building if possible, between you and the southwest direction, where storms usually come out of the southwest, that would shield you, at least shield you from that. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me in the comments, because this is just things that I picked up from watching other people and listening to professionals online. But I could be wrong. I'm not an expert in this by far. It's this type of thing. Usually I've seen these tornadoes happen at night. I know we get a lot of daytime too, but at night it's just doubly hard to take any action. You can't see these things. You can hear them. They sound like freight trains. If there's lightning, you may see something. But we talked about, me and Meddena talked about this today. If we were yesterday during this storm thing, we were at our father-in-law's area on his farm, so we did have the option of going in the house, but we had to leave dogs in the RV. We did have the option to do a few things. If you're traveling through a state and you see this thing's gonna hit, you may take a look at the places they feel the biggest threat is. They'll do it on the weather map, and then try to leave that area before this thing gets to you. Usually you'll know a day ahead of time if it's going to be bad or not. We did. We were in Mississippi the night before that, before we were headed to my father-in-law's place, and people were talking about it. And when we were in Red Bay getting our tiffin worked on, I talked to some people there from up north, and I said, look, y'all need to be very aware of the weather. And they were completely unaware that we had any type of bad weather moving in. They would say, well, this is December. And I said, yes, but see how warm it is? It was like 70 degrees there. And I said, we can't, you've got to look out when it just felt like a tornado weather. And I mean, somebody grows up in the South, it feels like tornado weather. You can tell anybody could tell you. It's just too warm to be in December. So, I told them, beware of it, beware. And they said, well, I appreciate it. But, whether or not they took me seriously, I don't know. But, have an app on your phone, have a radio or something inside your RV, know what county you're in, know what street you're on, the address, and the town you're in, so that you can, when they give out these warnings, they'll usually say, like, see, the Red Bay was Franklin County, Alabama. They'll say tornado warning for so-and-so, Franklin County, Alabama. They list a list of counties. Or they'll say this tornado's got a projected path for so-and-so, so-and-so, Red Bay, so-and-so. In other words, they'll give towns out so that give you a little warning. The difference in the two type of tornado warnings you will get: a radar depicted tornado indicated by radar rotation. They can actually see debris flying in the air on radar, the radar, or they have a confirmed sighting, often by law enforcement. They're out there in that area, and also they run on nets. They do weather nets on ham radio. So it's just something, when you look back at these damage like that was done, a tornado, staying on the ground hundreds of miles, a mile wide tornadoes doing this. I mean, there's
500 miles.
500 miles long. You can't really prepare in an RV to say, oh, we're just going to ride it out in the RV. I know that we're in a Class A. It weighs 40-something thousand pounds with fully loaded. We're on jacks, but I tend to want to leave leave the jacks down, but let it sink down maybe a couple of inches. We'll be off level for a while, but I'd like to have all four, I want as much on the ground as possible in a windstorm. I mean, and even straight line winds, 60 and 70 miles an hour, can flip a truck up. You see them on the highway, these big tractor trailers flipped over. So be prepared. We've seen RV places hit and these things flipped over. Not a Class A, fifth wheel, or anything's going to stand a direct hit by a tornado. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be that one sitting in your RV and come out, wow, that was hard. You need to take shelter. Now, if you're on the road, what they tell you is, I always thought that going under an overpass and hiding under an overpass was the thing to do, but they say no, don't do that, because the tornadoes can actually suck you out from underneath those things. But they tell you to go lay in a ditch. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know many people, kids especially, that you're going to get them out of there and make them lay in a ditch full of water. But unfortunately, to save your life, that may be what you have to do. They tell you not to get under cars. It's so, I don't know. I think a lot more people, would probably try to outrun this thing. They would try to, they see it coming, is try to beat it. And you're not going to beat it. A tornado's running 50, 60 miles an hour with winds up to 200 and something miles an hour. You're not going to beat it. So what I would suggest that you do is research as much as possible if you're going to be in these states, and know that a tornado can hit anywhere. It can be any state in the United States. A tornado can hit absolutely anywhere. And I'm going to put a little graph up here about the states that's more likely to have a tornado in it. And I would just do your research. Find out what works best for your family. What type of rig. You got a fifth wheel, you're pulling a travel trailer, you're in a Class A. It's difficult for us just to say, well, there's a tornado coming up here, I'm going to just turn around and head the other direction. Because one, if you're on the interstate, turning around, you've got to get to an Nexus or whatever, and we're pulling a Jeep behind us, so it's not like you can cut across a medium or whatever. And I don't have all the answers, but what I'm saying is, with all of this at the forefront right now, is you need to have a plan. That is the number one thing. And you need to have a plan, and you need to talk to your kids about the plan. You need to have everybody that travels with you to be aware of what to do. And another thing you may consider to have is, and this goes 365 days a year, have extra food put away, maybe a emergency location that you can have. If it's MREs, if it's this pre-processed food, or if it's just a few cans of something, water. Maybe if you have a generator, have an extra thing of gas, because I'm telling you, we were hit by Hurricane Ivan when we lived at the Gulf Coast, and there was 6 or 7 weeks we didn't have electricity down there. There were no cell service. They had to bring in these little portable cell towers, but it was like 4 or 5 days that there wasn't cell service at all. And I was working in law enforcement, but we still had to bring in emergency services because we had extensive damage to the infrastructure of the city. Now you hear Meddena coughing up there. We've been kind of suffering with this cold thing, this sinus infection thing. It's not COVID. We have I've been vaccinated, and I took a COVID test yesterday, and I'm negative for COVID, and Meddena, she's negative for COVID. So we do not have COVID, thank God. But it's just one of these things that happen, when this time of year, when the trees are they're Mother Nature's confused about spring right now because it's so warm outside. We've had the windows open and the fans on today because it's still warm outside. So anyway, the thing is that I wanted to talk about today was preparation and being prepared for these things, so that when any type of emergency happens, that you don't panic. You don't your kids don't know what to do in situations, or your wife or you don't know what to do, or anything. So we try to have a little magnetic pad thing, a board that we write our address, where we're at, our city, state, and if you have any medical issues that you might want to put that up there, where if you have to call 911 in a situation, you don't want to say, well, I'm at an RV park and we're at the outskirts of your city. That long road that came down. What was that long road? Or my wife, talking to my wife, what's that long road again? And what exactly she might, she could be incapacitated. I could be incapacitated. And when this happens, the last thing you want to do is wonder and try to explain to somebody where you're at. So just write it down up there. Get some type of magnetic thing, or you buy these little boards that you write with this dry erase pens. Put that somewhere and write down just your address, where you're at, the name of your RV park, the color of your RV, the color of your tow vehicle, so they can easily find you, what site number you're at, and so that you can tell them, hey, this is where we're at, this is where you need to come and help us. And I hope this has been some beneficial to you. We would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and ring that little bell so that you would get notifications of our videos. We currently are putting out 3 videos a week, and we hope you have a great night, and stay safe, and God bless you.